Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started. First off, welcome everybody and a happy 1-year anniversary of being virtual. I think it's officially a year since COVID has started and we're still going strong. So I appreciate everybody joining us, even though we can't, say hi face to face. Hopefully you've still been enjoying the content we present, and maybe we'll be face to face sometime soon. So welcome. Again, just a reminder in case you're new, my name is Jennifer Hunter. I run the Tableau user group here. If you ever have any questions, you should receive emails if you've signed up for our newsletter, which you can get to by going to usergroups.tableau.com. Find the Pittsburgh user group. It should take you to our hub page, and just make sure you subscribe for updates down here. As you can see in the bottom, you should also see a listing of all of our past and present future meetings, and you can RSVP to those as well. They are different links. So you'll notice each event, just as you can see the March 2021 event at the top, you can RSVP to individual events, as well as make sure you're subscribing for updates, and then you'll get all the emails from me, just like following this presentation when I send out any resources that are shared with me. So just an FYI. I wanted to share some Tableau happenings with you. Just so you know, it started in February, but there is currently a Tableau server fitness challenge going on. So it's basically a series of webinars. So whether you're looking to kind of learn more about Tableau server, or maybe you're the server admin at your company, really something you should sign up for, and you can kind of essentially make sure that your server is as performant as possible. So if you did miss those first ones, obviously it's in March now, you can obviously catch up on those recordings and then join the future sessions to begin with. There's also a data fam bingo going on, and Eric, I believe you're a part of this, so correct me if I say anything incorrect here, but that also started in March, and it's basically a series of tasks you can complete to join a raffle to win some prizes. So again, just a way to get involved with the community and participate in some fun activities that should also build your skills as well. And then finally, there's also a data book club. So if you're interested in reading different data books and having other data people to share and discuss those with, just like a normal book club, Brandy Beals actually started this, and all of these things, I'll share this PowerPoint after. I have links to all of these things. So if you're interested, definitely sign up for this and you can join and talk about data with some other data people. Also, oops, didn't advance here. Sorry, guys. There is also a Viz by Cesar Pico. If anybody's looking for a job change or just wants to know what kind of jobs are out there, maybe you're actually looking to hire, you can kind of search through, it's based off of Indeed data. Cesar Pico actually compiled a list of all the companies that have Tableau related jobs, so you can search them. So if you ever wanted to work for even Indeed, right, you can search them, look them up if you're looking for a new job or just a change. So just an FYI that's here. This link is in here as well. There's also a UK version if anybody is looking to leave the country. So what's on the agenda for today? We have two really awesome topics. First, we're going to be going through the relentless pursuit of business value using data, right? So how to kind of show, Kevin's going to walk us through practical ways for your data team to help just continue to make sure you're driving value to your business. And Kevin, he works for a company called Gooten. He is the VP of Data and Analytics. Kevin has always been at the intersection of business and technology, so he's not afraid to get his hands dirty, but also look at the higher strategy level as well. He has over 10 years of experience consulting in the analytics space and working with both leadership and technical. And he recently joined Gooten, which is a globally distributed production and logistics company. Sure, he'll go through that in July of 2020, and he's helping to grow their data and analytics team. After Kevin then, Eric will walk us through the lay of the landing page. So if you ever had a lot of dashboards that kind of go together and you're looking for a good way to provide a better user experience for your users to, go back and forth or understand what's available to them in a particular set of dashboards, Eric's going to help walk us through how to develop one. Eric is a senior consultant at Lovelitics. He also does several other things, right? He helps train people through it's just a Millennials in Data. It's a nonprofit started by Chantilly Jaggernaut. If you don't know her name, you should, and you should follow her because she is a Tableau Zen master and she puts out a lot of great content. Eric's also a Tableau Public ambassador, so very active in there, and he has a lot of posts, and a Tableau Public featured author. So outside of all of the Tableau things that he does, Eric also enjoys printing, sharing visits, traveling. and exploring the outdoors. And you'll notice in that March bingo thing that's going on, you can actually win some of Eric's visits that I believe he has an Etsy shop for. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Eric. When he presents, I'm sure he'll talk about that. Just as a reminder. Oh, sorry, Eric, were you speaking?
I said I'll correct.
Okay. Just a reminder, during the session, you're going to be muted, but if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box. I'll either answer them as we're going, or I might stop Kevin or Eric and ask them the question, but most likely we'll answer them all at the end to make sure we get them all answered. If there's anything they need to follow up on, I'll be sure to send out any of that information after the meeting. Feel free to use the chat. I already saw people saying hi, saw a lot of familiar names, so welcome guys, feel free to say hi. The session is being recorded, so the recording will be shared in case you want to look back at anything that was discussed. And then I will share any presentation materials or related resources that are available. So without any ado, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I'm going to turn things over to you, Kevin.
Great, thanks, Jen. Let me get my screen sharing. All right, you guys can see Jen, good?
Yep, I can see good.
All right, so let me first say nothing more humbling than seeing a life-size picture of your head staring back at you. That caught me by surprise, Jen. But thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here and share some of my story with you. And I say that intentionally. Today is going to be more about my story rather than academic or anything that's going to wow you with Tableau skills. It's really what led me to pursuing, my why and finding my why, which is business value. And that's really no different than I'm sure anyone that's on the audience, here. The image on the right is taken from Simon Sinek, wrote a book on finding your why called Start With Why. And so that's what I want to share with you today. So I snagged this quote from Tableau's website. I'm not even sure who Matt Hazlitt is. Maybe some of you do, but I really appreciate what he has to say. And if you bear with me, I want to read it. Understanding the value of business intelligence needs to be addressed, not just in terms of the cost and functional benefits of the software, but also in terms of the business benefits that are enabled by data-driven decision-making. That's a mouthful, but there are two pieces there clearly. One is the software side that really helps us advance our cause, but really focusing today's talk around the business benefits. If you stay tuned, hopefully there's some nuggets of information, but I'm also going to draw a correlation between chicken nuggets and data as we get down the road. So pay attention to that. So as Jen mentioned, I've been consulting in the data and analytics space. I'll use data analytics, business intelligence, analytics, all sort of interchangeably. And to me, sort of loosely for today's purposes, they all mean the same thing. But I use this as a way to communicate with customers, what's the goal? What are we trying to achieve with this initiative? So every business has data. The first step really in that maturity is turning that data into information. And we've been able to do that for years. But the next step is really what's been sort of the first challenge, and Tableau has addressed this space really well, is how do we turn that information to insights that previously was impossible with traditional reporting? Through visualizations, aggregations, allowing exploration for our users, driving insights. But in my experience, what I've found is a lot of organizations stop here. That's become sort of their pinnacle, and they're stalled. And so how do we move forward? But there's really just so much more we can do. Creating actionable insights, we'll talk more about that and what that looks like. But ultimately, our goal is to really drive and create impact in our organization. We should be able to track an ROI on the type of work that we're doing, and we should be driving results, moving beyond what I call interesting to actionable. And so across the bottom, just showing that the tools like Tableau and its competitors really help us in this maturity model get pretty far. But to advance, what we're going to talk about mostly today are the people, processes, and I'm going to call out executive sponsorship and what that really looks like to help us get to this place. It's not a destination. Just look at this as a journey. We're going to continue to move in and out of this maturity model. But the goal in everything we do is to really drive impact throughout the business. Don't need to cover that again. Agenda for today, I just want to share with you a bit of my history, my story, some of the milestones and my data journey as a consultant, and then a summary of some of those observations. I'll call them my truths that really shaped, my turning point just over a year ago. And then we'll get into the details in terms of how we do things at Gooten to drive value and who Gooten is. We'll get into that as well a little bit. So my journey as a BI consultant, rather than going over each of these, I thought I would present it to you sort of in phases. This started back in probably 2007, 2008 with a Microsoft tool called Performance Point. It addressed budgeting, planning, forecasting, analytics, dashboarding, and reports all in one. It was an OLAP-based tool, hit the market really hard. They did really well. I remember going to a Microsoft conference back in 2007. Every session that was about Microsoft Performance Point, they had to expand the venue for it because the popularity was just so great. I was about midway through my first implementation, had sold my second, and within 6 months, Microsoft did a 180 and pulled the product off the shelf. And for a variety of reasons, we could have another webinar about that, but I was left with what to do next. Worked for a Microsoft consulting company at the time, so I found a data visualization tool. It wasn't Tableau, it was a competitor. But the more important thing is that it was really offered me the opportunity to add value right away, what I would call quick win projects. And by the way, these arrows across the bottom just are indicators whether that was a value add experience or not. So quick win projects, there's generally enough budget from a customer perspective to buy some software and maybe 2 to 4 weeks of consulting. So the challenge there is, how do we find something that's of high value, high risk that we can solve and walk away and allow them to use that in a way that's meaningful to the organization. And hopefully you added enough value that you get invited back. And oftentimes that's what happened. But the first real milestone to me came as what I would call my first taste of game-changing analytics. This was an organization that had just come off of $1 million failed implementation of some other technology trying to leverage data. So we were invited into for a short project to sort of prove ourselves. We had 6 weeks to get this off the ground. There were 2 of us. And a very fast growth organization. Without getting into the weeds of what we did, there were a couple of things. First 6 weeks, I was in the CFO's office, side by side, working through the challenges. And so by the end of week 6, we had probably 8 different data sources. We had monitors around the offices, around the business, displaying real-time analytics. So I got moved outside the CFO's office into a fishbowl conference room right in the C-suite. And one of my memories that stuck with me is that there was one day where the CEO comes running out of the office, fists in the air, in a celebratory kind of position, running down the hall. So I jumped out, peeked down the hall to see what was going on. And I noticed this was a cube farm of customer service agents and sales, and they had sort of half-height cubes so you could see everyone's heads. And instinctively, most of them turned to the monitors on the wall to see what just happened. What threshold did we just cross, rather than asking themselves what's going on here? So I thought to myself, it occurred to me, is that's what a data-centric culture looks like, data first. So my first truth that I formed there is that you have to have executive sponsorship. And that's sort of what it looks like. And we'll talk more about that as we get into it. And there are some other attributes. Other pieces I'll talk about here is following that is a 2-year project. So I'd also formed the truth that if you have enough time, you can really add some value. I stayed here at this one for probably 18 months after the first 6 weeks, continue to push something to production every single Friday. So this was a 2-year project for a large integrator, professional services company. If I say their name, you'd immediately know who they were. This was an internal project, 20-person team, primarily made up of technologists and a few project managers, agile type people, adding 0 to no value, in my opinion. Very heavily focused on what is the technology, replacing what they had before with a newer technology, but not really adding any value to the business. There was no seat at the table for anyone on that team to sit with the business and try to understand what they're trying to solve for. Did some work in healthcare space, added a lot of value there. With a tool like Tableau, you can add quick value, which was good, but not long enough term project to really stay for more than 18 or 12 months. But what I started to see, and as I looked, pursuing additional work as a contractor, is there seemed to be a shift in the marketplace. Is that the longer term projects, they were really looking for technologists, and the projects when you boil them down, they were seen as either they emerged out of the technology operations of the business, or they were seen more as technology initiatives. They wanted Tableau specialists, Click specialists, Power BI specialists, SQL specialists. And at the end of the day, there's no seat at the table with the business to really understand what they're trying to solve for. You're asked to build this thing and make it look like this. And you know this thing that you're making is adding little to no value. You're getting paid for your time, but at the end of the day, you're not adding a ton of value. So that led me to the end of 2019 at a crossroads where I said, I have to do something different. So I had paid attention every day to what I was doing. I journaled at times. Was this a good day or a bad day? And it really came down to a mark of a good day is, did I add value today in the work that I did? Did I push something forward and help someone or some business do something better, or give them insights into something they didn't previously have insights into? So that left me with defining truths when I'm looking for the next thing. What are the observations, things I need to pay attention to when I'm looking to see if these things are present? So there are more than 4, but I'll limit it to 4 for time today. I think the most important is that BI projects that are led as business initiatives are far more likely to create value over technology-driven initiatives. So the less focus on the technology and more focus on what are we trying to do as a business and how can we use data to achieve that. Adoption does not equal value. I've seen people use the applications, the tools, the visuals across a business till you're running out of licenses and you're buying more, but that doesn't mean that you're achieving value. Here's the first chicken nugget reference. I think stakeholders are often satisfied with chicken nuggets. If I go back to that project, the 20-person team for the large integrator for that internal project, I sometimes joke that you've hired a chef and you're asking me to provide you a grilled cheese each day. So I think that just because people are using it doesn't mean that it's going to drive value to the organization. What I think is maybe the most important, I'll put it at 2 just for today's, and you'll see why in just a moment. Executive sponsorship, that's more than just approving the budgetary money finances to buy the software and bring in the people to get the work done. It demands active engagement. It demands being part of the meetings, part of the culture of driving a data-centric culture, so that it can create a framework for success and going forward. And lastly, I think just coming to the realization that creating value is hard. It takes willingness to lean into the discomfort, lean into the pressure to just produce something. But that focus on value, and I'll draw this sort of analogy, data is to value as food is to health. And I found that as I get older, maintaining health is becoming more important. And to do that, it's very hard. I can't just say I'm going to eat better. I have to pay attention to what is the nutritional value? How much do I need in terms of carbs and fibers and things of that nature if I want to get nutritionally healthy? Same is to value. You have to pay attention to your approach and stop and ask, why are we doing what we're doing? Is that going to help us achieve the business objective? So with that, I'll share with you, it brought me to Gooten. Either Gooten found me or we found each other last year. Without getting into the weeds of who we are, we're really a B2B type business. It sits between large Shopify and Etsy type businesses and the manufacturer. We handle the handling of the processing of the order, the routing to the vendor, the shipping, and the customer aspect of it. So the starting point for me was I had executive sponsorship and the CEO, and I report to the CEO. The environment is what I would call data rich, information poor, meaning there's a lot of good data, but the users, the stakeholders didn't really have access to it in a strategic way. There was a real appetite for data. We're a distributed workplace, but if we had an office, I would imagine there would be a line outside the door because everyone there is just really hungry for more data. There was no data team in place, which gave me a lot of latitude to build for what I would call the modern data stack, or build so that we can help drive a culture that creates a data first culture. So inheriting that modern data stack, I'm not going to get into this, but this is what I inherited. It's pretty typical of what you would see today with a cloud data platform in the middle, ingesting data through a tool that allows you to land it in Snowflake and transform. And then the consumption in it, they had a tool called Chartio. I'm not going to get into that, but as a way to move forward, I face some challenges. So data quality, there was an issue with, did I pull something from Chartio versus the system of record? I'm getting different answers. There were data latency issues and vulnerabilities in the data transformation process that just created, again, contributed to that lack of confidence in the data. And then from an accessibility perspective, the users just didn't have the ability to use the data, leverage data as a strategic asset. They certainly had the ability to extract and perform or build a simple bar chart, but beyond that, they didn't have a lot of accessibility to do anything or learn anything more about the data. But the greatest challenge is, if you accept those 3 bullets above, is I had less than 90 days to get ready for the holiday season. And being in the e-commerce space during COVID, you can imagine what the holiday season might be like for us. Our business improves or jumps over 100% month over month in the holiday season. So I first established guiding principles that I communicated to the business and how you're going to interact with the data and analytics. And I don't say that from a place of ego. It's just as a way to say, this is how we're going to do data if we want to drive value. So from a technology perspective, it should be an enabler of progress. So speed to value is something we're always going to pay attention to. We're going to focus in terms of prioritization of the work that we do on measures that matter. And that means alignment of our data work to business outcomes. And this mindset of data first is just driving towards a data-centric culture, that prioritization of data over intuition. And then lastly, stealing from design thinking, this concept of build to think is that we're not going to gather all the requirements up front before we start building. That we want to engage with the stakeholder in an iterative co-creation process fueled by questions, and even stopping and pushing away from the keyboard and say, are we asking the right question here? So we'll get into what that looks like here. So establishing inertia for us is first thing I did, because I knew Tableau, is I acquired a Tableau licensing and connected directly to the system of record. So I set the architecture aside for a moment, knowing that I had to get ready for holiday season. We didn't even have requirements yet. So the benefit is it addressed the time to value, certainly improved data quality because we had control over the pipeline. And then we informed the future state of the data model that's going to be required once the dust settles from the holiday season. And we actually went in with the acquisition of the Tableau licensing that this may be a throwaway. We don't know if Tableau is going to exist beyond the holiday season, but we know we can achieve these benefits. And that's something what executive sponsorship looks like, is accepting that and approving it. Establishing a process for intake, and we'll show you what that looks like in a moment, but again, directing the focus and attention on action and impact as opposed to being an order taker for what do you need out of data. Engaging with the stakeholders. We talked about this concept of build to think model. We start prototyping earlier, so it helps the stakeholders see and understand what's possible as opposed to waiting until we have everything that you're trying to solve for. And then lastly, this is, I think, is just as important as the others, is assigning testing and approval of completion to the stakeholder. That establishes ownership at the stakeholder level and keeps them engaged through the process. We actually have, in terms of Tableau projects on our server, we have a test project. And so as they're testing and interacting with what we're building, they have access to tests. We don't turn that off necessarily, but to get that to production, there's no onus on them to really push that to production if they have access to it. So we actually give them a deadline. Either you get it ready by whatever date, or we're going to restrict access to just you as the stakeholder, as the owner, this one person. So everyone has to go to that person for their questions. So that pushes them on and encourages them to own it and get it into production. So this is what our process looks like today. And this has evolved, quite honestly. We didn't start with this in place, but we knew we wanted to, if we think about those guiding principles, this is what the process looks like. So a new data request will come in from the stakeholder. And this is beyond just adding a new column or adding a filter or changing a visual. This is, we want to do something new. So we meet with the stakeholder, kind of understand informally what it is they're trying to solve for. What does this look like? And if we think that it's a new initiative, then we'll create an intake form. And this is what that form looks like. today. And this has gone through a couple of iterations as well. So we create one, we title it for the title of what we're trying to solve for. You can see some of the ones we've already done or we're working on today by the name. And it starts with, what will this dashboard help you achieve? And they have to complete that in some form, some narrative. And then we move to answer the following order of priority. What are we solving for? So for us as an e-commerce provider, as we got into the supply chain group, they were trying to solve for managing the backlog of orders that have been sent to production. So that might be something they're trying to solve for, manage their production backlog. And how will you measure that? We want to see in that count of orders that are currently in production by vendor, by product, by customer. And then what are we comparing it to see if it's actionable? For them, it was the SLA. The vendors have an SLA in terms of the time that they have to come back to us and deliver on that production. And then what actions may result? We may be following up with the customer, we may be following up with the vendor, but you get the idea there is that we have to create intention about what it is that we're trying to measure and why. And this is what time range is required. Oftentimes I find stakeholders, they're a bit reluctant to say, I only need the last 6 months or I only need the last 90 days. They're afraid they might miss out on something. That's not to be critical. I certainly understand the position they're in, but if the questions don't align and they say they need all of history, lifetime to date, and the questions don't align to that, then we can at least narrow down the focus and create an extract that's high performant based on what we're trying to answer. So there's a balance there. I once had a customer who bought one of the visualization tools. It was a competitor to Tableau. They bought it for over time. After about the year point, they were complaining about how slow it was. And my point back to them was, you bought a Porsche and you've attached a trailer and you're carrying all your personal belongings just in case you need them one day. And you're wondering why it doesn't perform like it did when you bought it. So that really addresses that space of creating an intention and purpose around what you need and boundaries. What dimensions are required, who's going to be the audience, and then future considerations. Just be thinking ahead about where you see this going. If I were building a house, I wouldn't want to find out down the road that you expected to build out an entertainment space in your basement when we didn't even account for a basement. So let's think about those things that you want to do in the future so we can take those into consideration. And here's the part where I ask the user, how will you validate the data for readiness, so that they take ownership for that? And then any definitions along the way that we can document. So this is, I've assigned them to complete the intake form. It comes back to us, and I'll give you a sense of what one looks like today. This is a second iteration around partners. Our partners are our customers. And so you can see it becomes almost like a discussion board. It starts to really add up over time. As we get into the questions, they really stumble in this space here and answering, like, what are we trying to solve for? This is more of a measure. It should be here, but if we can't define what we're trying to solve for, several pages of requirements, and clearly there's some things they need to do. So I just stopped and I said, Mark, just tell me what it is. Let's take 5 minutes. What is most important? And we just created this diagram together. How do we, if we were to boil it down, what's the entry point? Who's going to be using it? What types of questions are you asking? So it came down to 3 areas. We need a book of accounts view for our partner managers. We need an all partners view so that we can compare to see how we're doing against forecast and how much is split between acquisition and growth. And we need a single partner view so that we can focus on this one customer. And I'm going to drill down from this book of accounts into the single partner view. And so for them, it came down to revenue discovery, revenue risk, and these are all types of questions they want to be able to ask around that. And so now how do we get inertia around that? So we're meeting with the stakeholder, and this is intentionally very iterative. And this is what I talked about, the design thinking and co-creating with the stakeholder. Notice that there's prototyping that has started early. So we're continuing to have conversation, we're validating, what did you mean by this? Now that we're looking at this together, it really doesn't make sense. So we've taken this process here, and we've recently added one more layer to this intake, which is a design document. And so we start to bring context around, what are we trying to solve for? How do we get some inertia and get started? We have 3 pages of requirements. What's really important out of all of that? So we took that diagram and we've created this into a design document that we'll start using. That is the final piece. And so the content will be focused in terms of 3 areas. What's a monitoring activity, which is paying attention to what's happening now, sort of like a dashboard. I need to pay attention to what's happening in my business right now. Reporting is almost a rear view mirror approach as to what's happened, lower level of detail, more of a static view. And then analysis, really allowing the stakeholder to roll their sleeves up and interrogate the data, ask new questions within some guide, some framework of boundaries. Exploratory experience with rails on it. So we can use this to define what type of work we're creating for, what type of output are we creating. So we restated, what is this going to help you achieve? And then we've started carving out pieces of work. So we go back to this diagram. We looked at revenue discovery and revenue risk. And so this is finding new revenue and what revenue is at risk of losing in terms of a churn. And we brought those together and we called that partner movement. And Jen and I worked together on this to sort of flesh out, at the end of the day, what are we really trying to solve for? So we state the purpose of this, what's the perspective. This will be used by the partner manager, looking at their related partners as their book of business. For these types of partners, this is the time period that's in play here, the exact measures that expect to be on the dashboard, and then what are the interactions, and if there are any KPIs involved that we can view in aggregate to help bring context to, in summary, those will be defined here. So from that point, we've started interacting with the stakeholder. We've got to this design document that we've started creating. We want to get approval. What we can do now is peel off pieces. So this is the first partner movement. We started working on partner movement and then partner performance against forecast. And so the next piece is to, once we get approval from the design perspective, is to create a JIRA ticket. And that's just, if you haven't used sort of agile design or a Kanban, this is just a board to manage the work that we do. So we create a ticket. This is all the work that we're currently working on in our data and analytics team. This is assigned to our friend Jen, who's helping us out, but we literally just copied and pasted from the design document what it is that we're trying to build for here. And so this is assigned to Jen. She can work on it. We've shown this to the stakeholder, but this is a look into what we're building towards and what we're building in Tableau right now. And so the user gets an early experience, see directionally where we're heading, so we can show them kind of the art of what's possible. This is what we heard, and this is how we see this shaping up. So as we get to the point of beginning development, which looks to be a long time down the road, we've actually started development here and prototyping, getting feedback from the stakeholders so that when we start here, we're not far from the finish line. We're cleaning up and getting it into test pretty quickly. So that's really our design process in terms of how we drive value at a summary level. I'll tell you that not everything fits nicely in there. Sometimes a user just needs something. And I found this article from Gartner that came out last year. And I thought the way they categorize the value proposition of data and analytics to a business was really helpful, because I'm trying to achieve that highest level all the time. But there's really different value propositions. I think it's important. It was a good reminder to me that there's this category of data and analytics as a utility, and you can read this description. But I've gone back, not here, but these are Gartner's words, and redefine what this looks like for us at Gooten. For us at Gooten, data as an analytics as a utility looks like leveraging our architecture as an integration platform, because it's always on. We also can offer you direct access to the data we're storing in Snowflake, data that we've blessed to be true and is analytics ready. So if you want to bring your own reporting tool and attach it, we'll allow you to do that. Self-service is also in this data as a utility. So that's how we're addressing that space. The second category or type they've defined is as an enabler. And this is Tableau's sweet spot. It's fit for a purpose, aimed at specific goals, business goals. So you're creating dashboards and content around specific goals. So this is where we use Tableau the most. And then the last piece is data as a driver. So this starts to get into what Gartner is defining as ABI. It's analytics and business intelligence, or augmented analytics. I love what they say here is, without data and analytics, we are blind and see no opportunity. So providing a way to drive new insights through an exploratory experience through modern technologies, finding questions to answers where you didn't even know you had the question, finding anomalies, spotting trends that are difficult to see in the weeds of just tons of data that's in front of us. And so we're trying to address all three of these pieces equally so that we know that each space drives real value to the business. It's not just one place. I thought this did a real good job for us anyway of naming this so that we have some place to at least bring boundaries to what we do. So with that, Jen, I'll turn it back over to you if there are any questions.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, we actually have a good couple of questions that I'm interested to hear the answer to. So I'll rattle them off for you. So the first one is, it says, on choosing tools, the inevitability of change, and rightly so, how do organizations look at investing long-term into tools like Tableau or Power BI? And how can you plan for any changes, whether major or minor, that may come?
Yeah, that's great. Let me just get back to this architecture diagram. So we've chosen a cloud-first strategy. In terms of we're trying to do as much in the cloud as possible. So we use Snowflake as our repository for data. We use a tool like Stitch to land everything in its raw form in Snowflake. And then we use a tool called dbt to do all of our data transformation work. And we have different modeling layers that we're targeting to, which is bronze, silver, and gold. It could be a separate session in itself. But if you think of it as gold as a very denormalized data set that's built around specific business questions that we publish to the users so that they can interact with it. We could swap out Tableau for Power BI in a matter of days because all the data work is done on the handled here and addressed here, so we're not wed to any tool that's going to sit on top. We're deprecating Chartio right now only because we have some stragglers that are still eating chicken nuggets out of Chartio. But the idea here is the more work that you can do on the back end and leverage the cloud technologies, the less wed you are to any particular tool. I don't know if that helps.
Thank you. And if there's a follow-up to whoever asked that, please, feel free to throw that in the Q&A. The next question would be, what are your thoughts on a self-service model versus a data team that builds dashboards for stakeholders? I find that our analytics team often becomes a bottleneck because we can't keep up with requests and people lose interest while they're waiting or don't bother even pursuing a project because they assume we'll be too busy.
Yeah, it's a great question. I wrestled with that one myself. Tableau, Click, Power BI, all of them in that space, all promote this idea of self-service. But at the end of the day, when you turn a tool over to them, they're still constrained with the nomenclature of the tool, learning the nuances of how to just ask a question of the data. And that's a real challenge. So I think the challenge for us, what I did over the last quarter of 2020 is evaluate if I really want to live in and enable self-service, because I do have a bottleneck and I think that creates some frustration. And if you're going to embrace an approach that is co-creation with the stakeholder, that does require a lot more from them. So we've addressed that with different tooling to be able to address that self-service space, because I do think that's important. It has to be intuitive. It has to be done in a way that that's not a blocker to them, and that you can ensure that they're getting the right answers out of the question as they're going to the tool. And oftentimes I find that that work may lead to a Tableau project, something that's bigger, that lives into this enabler space. If they're able to interact and get to the point where I've got this almost where I need it to be, but I need your help getting it to a place where we can use it as a team and rely on it as a dashboard. So that may come in a number of different ways. And if we're creating production ready data models, and we can give access even using a driver and allow them to access that in Excel so they can start pivoting with that data. We've done that in some cases, or find a tool that allows you to address this space really well. I think that's a real challenge, but it's also, I think for us, it's a game changer because we're trying to have hands-on keyboard with every user across Gooten by the end of 2021, so that we've really created this, not only literacy, but a data-first culture.
Awesome, thank you. And then one more final question. It says, who is completing the intake forms? If it's the client, do you find it a challenge for some clients to complete this kind of written communication, considering roles, skill set, et cetera?
Yeah, it's generally manager, director, or above, someone's asking, I need this for my business to manage this thing, whatever that is. And honestly, we've just been, I'm not at an MVP level in terms of having critical mass in my department. There are 3 of us today. I have myself who leads the department. I'm also very hands-on. I have an analyst and I have an analytics engineer, and I'm bringing on a BI manager who is also hands-on, and that'll get us to that place where we can be more proactive. But if they can't complete this, we'll come back around and ask if they're stuck, if there's something they can help. But my sense is, and having some conversation is, when they look at that form, it's really not at a place where it's actionable. They just need access to data. So opening up a pathway for self-service helps with that cause, because they're really not trying to get access to something that's actionable at this point. They're just looking for access to the data and answer some very specific questions. So when they don't finish the form or don't send it over, or that becomes a blocker to them, we at least have the conversation. But I found that even individual contributors can complete that form well enough to get the conversation started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. If anybody has any follow-up questions, or this is thought of any, feel free to throw those in the Q&A, and I can even have if we can answer them today, we can answer them in a follow-up email. Thank you so much, Kevin. I thought that was a great session. I think that's something we can all relate to, especially, getting buy-in from the business, right? There is no data visualization without people to support it and want it, right? So I think the people in the process is a really important part of the whole data visualization process and just driving data in general.
Oh,
so thank you so much.
You bet.
Without further ado then, Eric, I'm going to let you take it away.
All right, let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get right into it. Let's go full screen here. All right, everything good there, Jen?
All looks good on my end.
Cool, awesome. So yeah, I just want to start out by thanking Jen for inviting me today to speak to the Pittsburgh Tug. I have my Steelers black and gold throughout our presentation today. I'm a Steelers and Penguins fan through and through. Give a little bit more about my background and my ties to Pittsburgh in just a second, but here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out with any questions if we're not able to get to them today. Very active in the Tableau community, so always, on Twitter, answering Tableau related questions, sharing visualizations, that type of information. But today's presentation is called The Lay of the Landing Page. So what is a landing page? If you have no idea, don't worry, that's what we're going to cover today. But this kind of idea started around how we can enhance our dashboards and give them a little bit more of a user-friendly experience. So that's what we're going to get into today. This presentation, if you attended a DC Tug, or I think I spoke at the Dallas or Houston Tug or the Tableau Fringe Festival, this is a presentation that's similar to this one, but with a little bit more content in this one here. So just a quick background on myself. I'm a senior data analytics consultant at Lovelytics. We're headquarters out of Arlington, Virginia, with offices in Cleveland and Toronto. We are a Tableau, Salesforce, Mapbox, Snowflake partner. We were the 2021 Rising Partner of the Year with Tableau. So we deal with everything from the back end of getting your data set up for Tableau all the way to finishing out those visualizations on the front end. So really the whole gambit of the data analytics process. I specialize on the front end, working alongside Chantilly Jaggernath, who's our resident Zen master at Lovelytics. Along with her, we also both teach for Millennials in Data, which is a nonprofit started by her. Jen mentioned that in the beginning, but right now we're in our 5th cohort, which is super exciting, where we get to help bridge the data literacy gap between millennials and professionals, and just getting them ready for the real world, and just some data examples of what they're going to have to deal with when they start taking on full-time roles. I actually think one of our students are on the call, so shout out to her for joining us. I'm also a Tableau Public Ambassador and featured author. I was actually introduced to Tableau when I was a student at Duquesne in Pittsburgh. So another shout out for Duquesne, but Tim Wright, who works at NetHealth, I think he usually attends these user group meetings, but I remember when I was interning there as a student, I was building all these clunky reports in SQL Server reporting services, and he joined the team and leaned over my shoulder and said, "Oh, you should build these in Tableau." And I had no idea what it was. He gave me a quick, 15-minute crash course, and forever changed everything that I'll do in my career. So I owe a lot to him. I have actually absolutely loved working with Tableau. Just really got involved with the community and enjoy getting to share my experiences with others. So absolutely love Pittsburgh, love Steelers, love Penguins. I gave this presentation at a DC Tug user group meeting and got booed when I mentioned that I was a Penguins fan. So that was a fun experience. But yeah, a lot of ties to Pittsburgh, and happy to be able to speak with all of you today. So what are we going to cover? We're going to talk about what Tableau landing pages are, how do they start, when should we use one, some important components and designs to consider when building out a landing page, and then we're going to go through some different examples and where I typically draw my inspiration from. So like many of you, this kind of is how all of our data looks, right? We have all of these different charts and graphs. We have data coming in from all over the place, a bunch of different systems. And sometimes it can be difficult on how we want to organize it. Do we just throw it all in our Tableau server and give everybody permissions to everything? Do we have a set of dashboards that are grouped together based off of a particular data set or topic? So this really comes down to organization and how we're able to make it better. So previous to my role at Lovelytics, we were faced with this problem of rolling out all of these old legacy reports now into Tableau and redesigning them and just giving all of our users, here's our brand new tool that we're using. Here's how it's going to be so much better than the other ones. And we just wanted to come up with a design that looked really cool. And we also wanted to just have a better organization of all of our reports that we were putting out. So basically, we wanted to give something that kind of welcomed our users to the set of the dashboards that they were about to consume, giving them some information on how often that data is refreshed, who owns the data, any important links to like a data dictionary. And then I specifically remember my boss saying that he wanted it to look like Google. So that can be a little bit difficult within Tableau, but there are ways that we can get there. So, we wanted to ultimately have something that had a cool and modern look and feel to it and just didn't look like your typical Tableau report. So all of that stuff, after a few wireframes and brainstorming sessions, it led to this. So this was the very first initial landing page that I created within Tableau. And yes, I get this question all the time. This is 100% all within Tableau. There are elements that are from different systems, but this is all from Tableau. So I'll get into more of like what makes this up, but this is an example of a landing page. Basically, it's kind of that home screen, that welcome page that brings you. That's the first thing that everybody views within Tableau. And then from there, it's going to have links out to other reports, different websites. It's going to allow you to filter your data down before you start to dig into it. So I'm going to go through all this in just a minute, but when I talk about a landing page, this is what I'm speaking to. So just kind of keep this image in your mind and we'll start to pick this apart as we go through it. So what is a landing page? The very simple definition is the first page you land on after clicking a link. Then there is a more specific marketing definition. And I really like this one because this was our goal with building out this landing page. It's a web page that's designed to take web traffic and convert visitors in a particular way for a particular reason. So part of the reason that we wanted to have this dashboard that welcome users before just throwing them into our data is we wanted to, invite them and make them feel comfortable with everything that they're about to consume. Sometimes when you just have loads of data and charts all over the place, different donut charts, line charts, bar charts, these huge crosstabs, and all these filters everywhere. If you're someone that hasn't used Tableau before, that can be really overwhelming. And ultimately, you're not going to want to use it. You're going to email the person that built it and just say, hey, can you give me an export of this to Excel? And I know all of us are faced with that problem all the time. So, we wanted to create something that was a little bit softer on the eyes, that had, that web page type of feel to it that was familiar to everybody. So that's where that design came from. And then I have this not a homepage definition. I guess in kind of the marketing world, there's this argument between, what's a landing page, what's a homepage. Personally, I really don't care what you call it. I have my own particular definition for it, which I'll share in just a second. But a landing page is how I refer to it. And my definition is it's the first dashboard in a workbook that a user will see that captures their attention and provides them context on the data they're about to consume. So the first part is always the first dashboard in a workbook, right? So within a workbook, we have our individual dashboards. Those dashboards have different objects on them that include worksheets, text items, images, all of that type of stuff. But this is always going to be the first one that, when the user clicks on it from Tableau server, when they click on it from Tableau public, when they open it in desktop, it's going to be the first one that pops up. From there, we want something that captures their attention. So, is it using my company's logos? Is it, familiar with me? Does it have a catchy title, a good description of what I'm about to look at? And then from there, it's just going to give them, these navigation buttons or high level metrics that are going to allow them to navigate to those detail reports. So that's my definition of a landing page. And now, what are some scenarios and when we can use them? So I like to use them when we have a group of related dashboards. And what do I mean by related? It could be anything from the data, if it's coming from the same data source and it's all of our finance data. Maybe it's a particular department, so we have all of our marketing dashboards together. Or maybe I'm a sales rep and I want to be able to just, focus on my Eastern region. So, just focusing on a particular segment. That's typically when I like to use them. Usually when I have more than, let's say, like 3 to 4 dashboards, I like to try to implement a landing page. If not, sometimes they're not always necessary. We don't need to always have a landing page, but I think of probably the biggest scenario of when we don't need one is if we just have one dashboard or it's that CEO, executive level summary. But there is something else that we can do that's going to, make our user feel comfortable with using Tableau and something that's going to give them more context. And we can do that through the show hide container option, which I think came out in like a 2018 version of Tableau. But that option, which I have an example of, is a way that we can overlay our visual with some call outs of, saying click here to do this or circle this to do that. So that's just another option. So all these landing pages are doing are, one for navigation. It's another option for, just adding more context to what you're about to look at. So that's typically when I like to use them. Yeah, like I said, if I'm just working on one dashboard, probably not necessary in that scenario, but anything, from 3 to 4 or more, that's when I like to have, the landing page to navigate through to different options. So now we're going to get into some components of a landing page, things I like to consider. So on the right, I just have my image of the landing page that we created. So the first thing that I have circled is the main headline and the supporting headline or description. So, give a title that's descriptive. Let me know what I'm about to look at, and then have some other information in there. How often is the data refreshed? Who's the data owner? Give me some high level metrics that I'm able to consume, or if there's, a big definition in there, anytime you see sales, it's referring to this. So, give me some definitions on what I'm looking at. From there, right, we want to brand our dashboards, and you'll see that I have the organization logo and the company branding here. So I have my logo in the top left corner here, and then I have, some funky cool charts and colors and everything. So, in this scenario, my organization has these different green palettes. So that's what I used. All of your organization should have an approved style guide. And from there, you can use your company color palette. You can bring that actually into Tableau so you have it handy at all the times. You have all your approved logos and fonts. I would caution on fonts because, you have to make sure that it's supported in Tableau and on different systems. Once built a dashboard in Calibri and someone opened it up on a Mac and it just looked like a newspaper and was like all this thick text and looked terrible. So that's just something to consider, is making sure, you're sticking with consistent fonts if you can't use your organization approved fonts. But I always think it's important to brand your dashboards, make it look like yours or your clients, use their logos, use their colors, any images that they want you to include, it can really take your dashboard to the next level. Finally, from there in the top right corner, I just have some contact information. So these are just URL links. If I click on the team webpage, it might take me out to, my Slack or SharePoint channel with all of my, the team webpage. There's an email us option. So, if I'm the data owner or the dashboard developer and there's some issues with it, they can click on that email us icon and it's going to email whoever is tagged under that URL action. And finally, we just have a link out to documentation. So, maybe we have a huge data dictionary that folks, can go to look at just to get a better understanding of all the definitions and terms that they're going to be using. Some other things on here, just highlighted in yellow, are the high-level filters and supporting images. So, use friendly images that, people will recognize, have kind of that cool look and feel to it, or, maybe it's, a picture of something in particular that has to do with the data that you're about to consume. So, try to, add those images into your dashboard. And then finally, I have the high-level filters. So this is a great way to kind of filter down your data and the rest of your dashboard. So I'll go through just this example when we get there. But from here, I was able to search for a particular customer, and then it's going to filter down my whole dashboard for that. So if you're, someone that has a ton of data that they're looking at in their dashboard, you could always have these kind of high-level filters that are going to filter down the rest of your data before you even start to open that big report. So the example I gave earlier is, we might have someone who's responsible for a particular region. Maybe we have a region filter on our landing page, and I don't even have any data. It's just, instructions that say, select your region and then hit, go to dashboard. And then from there, when I go to that first dashboard, everything's already filtered for the data that I'm worried about. I do also have a section over here for the quick reports. This is kind of a really cool feature that we can do if we connect to our Tableau server. So if you have Tableau server and you're able to go in there, right? As a user, I can go in and save my own custom view. You're able to pull that information out, and using URL actions, right? I have, this is example's a little bit small, but when we go to it in a few slides here, we'll be able to see it bigger. I can save my information. And then, as the user, I can come back to this landing page, find something, a custom view that I saved earlier, and then I could go back to that. So that's always an option if you're able to connect to your Tableau server through Tableau and pull that information out into something like a quick report. Really, really neat feature. Things I don't have mentioned on here are just high-level key metrics and intuitive navigation buttons. So this one doesn't have any navigation buttons. We do have some examples that show that, but basically, right, those navigation buttons are, I think, another 2018 version and beyond, but you can customize them as images, as text items, but really allows you to just, jump quickly through your dashboard and really create this awesome clickable user experience. And then just the high level key metrics. This one was actually suggested to me by Joshua Smith, who is a Tableau Iron Viz finalist and winner. But basically a way that we can just go to the landing page and then, setting up like notifications or identifiers that let me know, okay, this right now, this report, there's something going on with it. So, you can ignore report 1, 2, and 3, but you want to go check out 4 because it's over this certain threshold that you set. So just having little trigger icons like that to allow us to know, which reports are okay and which ones do we need to take a look at. And I do have an example of that one. So you can really start to see how these landing pages can be so robust and include tons of information. We don't want it to turn into something like a dashboard where we have all of this stuff on there. We want to keep it kind of simple, kind of slimmed down. We don't need to go into too much detail, but we still want to give our user the ability to either filter down their data or just get a high level picture of what they're looking at. So then, where do we get examples or inspiration from? Well, lucky for all of you, I have a bunch of examples that we're going to go through today. But if you're looking for other types of landing pages or home pages to kind of, recreate within Tableau, one of the best places that we can go to is the internet. We can just go, to Google Images, or I like to go to Pinterest. It's a great way just to kind of search something to get some, useful information on certain designs and things like that. I know Chantilly, who I work with, she is always going to Google Images to search up, infographic style or something like that. And, I like to think that I have all the best ideas when it comes to, dashboard design, but I know I don't. There's a lot of other folks out there that share their work. And this is where we can get a lot of, inspiration from and ideas. So you can see here, this is where I kind of got the idea for the first landing page that I showed, just with some simple navigation, and we have this background image and the title. So really simple, but, when we start to translate into Tableau, it can really take our dashboards, to that next level. So here's the Superstore example that I have of a landing page. So, I won't spend too much time on this one since we already talked about it. None of these are really interactive right now. They don't link out to other dashboards. Right now, it's just strictly the landing page itself. But you can see here I have a title that explains what I'm looking at, and I have some supporting information of how often the data is refreshed, or who's what the reports include. Then I have this quick search. This option allows me to come in here and search for a particular customer name or order ID. But then from there, using the URL actions and filter actions, or even parameter actions, I can click on a particular order ID. It's going to pass that order ID through my parameter action and filter the rest of the dashboard for me. So I could go look at Anthony Johnson or this particular order ID in the rest of my dashboard. And then again, I just have the example of the quick reports over here. But this is, if we create, or if we are able to connect to our Tableau server, pull in that custom view data, we can use URL actions to, pull in the owner of it, name of the custom view, and then I can click on it. It's going to take me right to, where I saved that before, if we're not as familiar with navigating Tableau server. But just a really great option of how we can, bring all of this into one landing page and give our users a bunch of different options before they even get to use our dashboard. Finally, down here, I just have a link out to another dashboard or the data source itself. So from here, right, these are just standard reports. If my user has access to the data source or other reports, I can put those links in here as well. Again, just using the company branding and some logos as we go through it. So the next one that I want to share is just an example of that show hide container. So this dashboard was created by Timothy Manning. He's was a student at the data school in the UK. So this isn't mine. This is one of his dashboards that he put together. But right, what we're looking at is just kind of that CEO high level summary data, right? Just looking at our total sales, breaking it out by our different segments and showing a little bit more detail. But right, it has that really cool scorecard look approach to it. While using the show hide container, if I click on this info button, it's going to overlay the dashboard with the show container. And then it's just going to give me some prompts on what I can do. So as I set different filters, it's going to update my dashboard. Then I could watch the numbers update after I select a particular group or click on something else. And then if I want to get a summary of the points here, I can just lasso around that group, and then it's going to filter my dashboard for that. So this is actually one of the earlier examples of a show hide container that I saw. Right. Typically, we use them with filters on, if we don't want to load up all the filters on a dashboard, we use the show hide option to either show or hide them. But here, this is a great example of how we can add some more context to our dashboard in case if someone isn't super familiar with Tableau. Do they know to lasso? Do they know that if they select a filter over here, it's going to update this stuff? So using this type of overlay function, I think is a really cool idea. So again, shout out to Timothy for this one, because I think it's a really cool dashboard. Oops, wrong button. Moving on just to a few healthcare examples here. So here we have our chronic diseases and reports and dashboards. This is just a simple landing page that uses navigation buttons. So again, we have our supporting image here of the doctor and the patient. We have our big title with a little bit of a descriptive here. Then from here, we just have these buttons. Now you might be wondering, okay, well, when I drag out the navigation object within Tableau, I get this, kind of clunky looking button. That's the default that Tableau gives us. But if we edit that button, we're able to make it just a text option, or we can use an image. So these are all images. These are image buttons, image navigation buttons that I created in PowerPoint. So this kind of goes on to a whole nother presentation that we could talk about on how we can use different tools to leverage our design capabilities within Tableau. So, a lot of us are pretty familiar with Tableau being, just a little bit limited in terms of, being able to add shadows to things and rounded corners and really format things to kind of that next level. Well, the good news is we can use tools like Figma, which is a free online tool, or we could use, things like PowerPoint or Adobe Illustrator. These buttons specifically were made in PowerPoint. Just using combination of shapes, you right click on it, you save it as an image, and then you could bring that image into your Tableau dashboard. So I know that's what a lot of folks are using to kind of, get the design quality and, that they're looking for in their dashboards, adding those drop shadows and things like that. But This is just an example of a landing page that has these navigation options that we can use. From there, this is a recent one that I put together as part of the Project Health Viz initiative run by Lindsay Betzendahl in the Tableau community. I thought this one was kind of a fun one. My whole background is actually in healthcare, so I enjoyed creating this one. But basically, this is just a landing page. Now, I don't think Tableau has this capability yet, but it just kind of goes to show that even before we open up a dashboard, right? Let's say this is embedded within our maybe this is embedded within our portal or something like that. We can flash some messages as just a reminder that says, the information that you're about to, consume contains protected health information, don't download or share the images, right? And we could set those permissions on Tableau and everything. I did add something funny here with, the identity confirmed and all that, but right, we could always just show little messages like this. And then from here, I could select this button that allows me to enter the dashboard. And then here I am looking at my data. So this was kind of a futuristic design here, or more of a modern dashboard. But again, this is all created within Tableau. I will admit the background images and the menu on the side was created in Figma, but the charts itself and the KPIs were all made within Tableau. But again, this is just an option that we can do to set like a reminder, or just say, hey, before you look at this data, keep this in mind, and then allow our user to enter the dashboard. Then we have one here for social media. So I like this one. I think it has a pretty neat design to it. Again, all created within Tableau. I just got the images offline and things like that. And then the icons, they come from Flat Icon. But, this option here, this is just, a floating gray container with a floating blue container over top of it with, extra padding around the side. I always get questions like this. Well, how do I design this within Tableau? It's, just using different containers and padding and things like that to kind of give it the look that we're, hoping for. From here, right, we just have, again, options to click on different social media icons to take us to their specific analytics. But then I also have this other section up here that allows me to go out to those different folders within my Tableau server. So you might have a really nicely organized Tableau server that has your other departments broken out like this. I doubt it because I haven't seen any like this. I know mine isn't like this, but this is kind of a great way to use those URL actions to take you to those different dashboards. So here we're looking at our social media ones, but maybe I want to go check out, I'm the VP of the organization. I want to go check out some of the C-suite dashboards that were created. So I can click on that and it's going to take me to there. So, just other ways that we can add some navigation to make our Tableau dashboards, more accessible and, a little bit friendlier to our users. And again, we just have some of these little icons here, that are familiar. So if I have any questions, if I want to write an email, and this is for documentation. So just using icons that are friendly and recognizable to others. Just have a few more here. Then we have our finance one. So this is our Pittsburgh Tug finance reports here. So I really like this design because it incorporates some of those high level metrics that Joshua Smith suggested to me. So from here, right, I can just go to this landing page and I can tell, if I need to take a look at any of these reports, the 4 that I have here, I can see that report 2, 3, and 4 are okay with the little blue icon, but then I have this threshold set on report 1 that says, when this particular measure is, above or below this this level, change the icon to this image. So here, right, I can see that, something changed to 43.1%. So I better go take a look at what's going on in that one. So I really like this one because it gives me kind of a quick way that I can, instead of wasting all the time looking at all my reports, I could go to the one that I should be focusing on. Again, just using the dashboard navigation objects to enter into that first dashboard, right? We're using consistent colors throughout our dashboard, so we're not using, all of our logo or all of our company colors. We're sticking to some of those dominant ones. And then from here, right, if I'm able to create my own custom reports, maybe I have a link out to the data source. So, if you're, have a certified data source and you're able to allow your users to go in and create their own custom reports off of that data source, you can have a link out to that. So just, trying to give as much different scenarios and options as possible. Finally, here's our Lovelytics Professional Services Suite landing page. So here I can find data regarding our opportunities in sales, time tracking, and conversations at both the executive and sales rep level. So here, right, I have my navigation buttons that are taking me out to those dashboards. I have some of the high-level key metrics. Maybe I can even add a few parameters on here if I want to view the data monthly, quarterly, or yearly. And then I just have a quick chart here that's showing my close one over time. All the data that we're looking at is not real data. It's all fake data, but still, right, this is just an example of a landing page. So we don't have too much on this report. We just have some information. We have some supporting images. It has, kind of a modern looking style to it. But then from here, I can just, at a quick glance, see how I'm doing, see how I'm performing, filter a little bit, and then I could jump into some of the reports that I care about most. So I really like this, the concept of a landing page because, it really lets us, kind of give that high level, the high level metrics, that high level information, but then we're able to dive down into the details throughout the rest of the dashboard. All at the same time, while not really confusing our user with just throwing all the charts and everything at them to begin with. So from there, just to kind of wrap things up, like I said, I gave this presentation in DC, so I had to throw this first bullet point up on the slide. So I got booed again when I shared that. But a landing page is the first dashboard in a workbook that a user will see, and it's something that's going to capture their attention and provide them context on the data they're going to consume. We should probably use one when we are working with a group of related dashboards. And if we don't, we could always use that show hide option. So like I said, typically we're using that with filters to show or hide our filters, but we could also use it bigger picture to cover our dashboard and give a little bit more context, with a transparent image. And then, as always, remember to brand your dashboard. So there, use the company or client logo, use the colors, approved fonts, any approved images that they want you to use, and try to stick to just 1 to 2 dominant colors. So sometimes when we get the client's color palette, sometimes we start to incorporate too many colors and it can be really distracting on the eye. Well, I like to stick to it where I'm just using 1 or 2 of those dominant colors to add emphasis or use shading. And other than that, I'm using, white or gray just for those parts that, I really don't need to draw the eye to. So just, in terms of visual best practices, when we're designing our landing page, try to stick to the approved style guide and just use color and fonts correctly. From there, I just want to thank Jen again and the rest of the Pittsburgh Tug for having me today. Always super excited to speak about landing pages and join these virtual Tug meetings. Again, I work at Lovelytics. We're a Tableau Salesforce partner. Feel free to reach out with any questions. On my Tableau public page, a version of this presentation is available. So it's actually a whole Tableau dashboard, this whole thing that we just went through. So it is available on my Tableau public page if you want to take a look at that and download it. More than welcome to. But always happy to talk about anything in the Tableau community or around landing pages specifically. So Jen, thanks again for having me. And this was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Eric. We do have a couple of quick questions. I think the first one refers to the first landing page that you showed. It says it was the custom view one.
Yes.
It said is the custom view based on this specific TWB. So like the specific.
So in this example, this is just off of like a fake data set that I created. So right now it's just pulling it in from like 2 columns with an Excel data source. So that's just for this one. But the one that I did design at my previous job does pull out, it's connected to the Tableau server and is pulling out the custom reports that users have created based off of this dashboard. So using the same data source, but pulling it out and basically saying, okay, the owner or user created this custom view and they named it this. That way it allows me to jump back to that one if I have it saved.
Yep, I think that was the question. Are these all custom views of the same dashboard or a dashboard within like the same group of dashboards, I guess?
Yes,
yep.
All custom views. So, like here, like I have this one, they filter just for the top sales. So maybe they filtered the dashboard just for the top 10 and it's just something that they save. That way they don't need to go in and throw all the filters on again.
Yep. Okay, the next question, Tim asked, Eric, do you use any navigation on the dashboards themselves to get back to the landing page?
Yep. Yeah. So actually, that's maybe another example that I could build in here. But a lot of the designs that I put together after having the landing page, either going down the left side or across the top, I'll keep the logo in the same spot. I'll keep the title as it changes between dashboard, but then we'll have the navigation that says home or landing page, and then the navigation to the other dashboards as well. So if I go back to this example here, right? Here's our landing page. I click into it. Then I have the different menu items to take me to the different dashboards. So, an option to go home, an option to go look at our map dashboard, our user dashboard. So yes, I typically include the navigation to go back to the home page.
Awesome, thank you. You just got a shout out from somebody at NetHealth that just said, thank you. This is why we hired you. We have another question which has been my burning question. So once the landing page, right, is published to Tableau server, how do you limit users to actually start on that landing page versus any of the other dashboards? Like basically, how do you kind of force that starting point navigation when they can ideally log in and go anywhere?
Yep. So that's a really good point. Unfortunately, I don't think there is a way to force that home page to start. I guess my hope is either in the workbook description or by just seeing home, or maybe you label it start here instead. That way they click on it from there. But one of the things that you can do is when you publish it, you can publish it without tabs. That way they don't see the tabs at the top, and then they're kind of forced to use the navigation objects that you use within your dashboard. So yes, when they do click on that workbook initially, they will see all the other dashboards that you published. So I don't think there's kind of a way around that. But one of the nice things, if you're able to, if this is published on like, custom portal or something like that, you can kind of get away with, clicking on this and it takes you to the home one right away. But if you're just on Tableau server, I don't think there's a really great way just to, force your user to start at a particular, to start on that home page besides, with some crafty labeling.
Yep, I think I can iterate on that too. I normally, like if they have a link, I know a lot of people in my experience, when they get that initial link, usually they save it as their, in a favorites or something. So as long as that initial link is the landing page, I know a lot of times, at least in my experience, if they have that, it's already in their favorite link. So they're starting there anyways, because that's what they've saved in their browser. The last one, I think you answered this. Catherine asked, are any of these sample workbooks available on Tableau Public for us to check out? And I think you said there was a version.
Yep, I actually plan to upload this one just because I've included a few other ones, but yeah, I do have the whole presentation itself is on my Tableau Public page, and then just a set of workbooks that have the landing pages themselves. So I try to update that as I create other ones, but yeah, they're all on my Tableau Public page.
Thank you. And I'll make sure that I share those links out as well on my follow-up email from after this presentation. So many of places to check that out. Just checking here to make sure I didn't miss any other questions. Okay, I think that is all. So I'll say thank you very much, Eric. I'm gonna share my screen again if you wanna stop sharing, and we'll do some wrap up here.
Cool.
Let me know if you guys can see my screen here. Eric, can you see, since you can unmute yourself?
It's all good.
Yes, yep,
Okay.
I can see.
Cool, thank you. So just a reminder here, some community initiatives you can get involved in. I know there's been several others that have come out just in the past couple of months of 2021. So just the list here, and again, this PowerPoint will be sent out. So here's a bunch of different ways, including the ones I presented at the beginning of this, like Eric's bingo challenge. Mark Bradburn, who also works for Tableau, also started a challenge, and I don't know if I can't remember the name of it. Eric, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but he also started a different challenge that essentially he presents a data set and you can try and create a viz on it, and he'll review them, that kind of thing, just to get you involved in practicing making visualizations from data sets that maybe you don't have access to in your work or personal life. Our next TUG meeting is actually going to be May 19th, and it's going to feature the Florlage twins. If you don't know them, please Google them now. They have a lot of great content. And they're probably going to take up most of our meeting next in May. So be on the lookout for that. It's going to be awesome. I am looking for anybody who has taken any of the Tableau certifications. If you'd be interested in serving on a panel to take questions to help people, because I think summer is a good time where a lot of people might spend time either studying or taking a certification. So I would like to shed some insight on that. So if you'd be interested in being a part of that panel, if you have taken any of those certifications, please email me. I'm also going to be sending, I just call for speakers in general. I'm going to be sending out an email for the ability to sign up. I know a lot of people indicated yes, that they'd be willing to speak at a future tug. So please, if you already have a topic, please reach out to me at pghtug@gmail.com. Let me know what you'd like to talk about. And again, it could be something as simple as just sharing your Tableau story, just like Kevin did today. Any tips and tricks, if you have a team at work and you guys each want to show a tip or a trick that maybe you've learned in the past couple of months, we'd love it. And again, like those certification resources, if you'd like to be part of a panel for that, please let me know. And looking for speakers for the rest of 2021. So feel free to jump in on that. The last thing real quick I wanted to do, since we have a few minutes, if you guys want to snap this QR code, I have a couple of questions just to gauge our users for today. So if you want to snap that QR code, I'll give you a second. And then I'll start the poll. If somebody could let me know in the chat if the QR worked, if you see the poll. Thank you. Give you another couple of seconds in case anybody else is still doing it. Yep, thank you. I haven't started the poll yet, so thank you, agents. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start it, collect a little bit of information from you guys. So just curious who in the community and joining the meeting today, which certifications that you have. Okay, so it looks like only 13 of you are in there. All right, cool. Are you planning to obtain any? And feel free to let me know in the chat too, if you didn't get a chance to get into the QR code. This just helps me gauge what we can present on. All right. This is my last question. Don't worry, this is anonymous, guys, so you can vote freely. Okay, great. Thank you so much for the feedback, guys. Just a reminder here. Just gonna go ahead and pause this. If my slide will go. So just a reminder, be lookout out for the invite. I should have that up hopefully by next Monday so that you can start RSVPing. I know people like to schedule ahead of time. Again, if you'd like to speak at any of our events, look for that email as well. And I'll be sharing all of the resources for this following today's session, as well as the recording of today's session. So again, I just want to thank everybody for coming. Hopefully we'll be able to meet in person sometime soon. And the RSVPs will be coming out once I put the posting up. So I actually haven't put the meeting posting up. So you'll be able to RSVP once I make that live, just like you did for this event. And I'll obviously be sharing that link across all of our social media outlets like Twitter and LinkedIn. So feel free to look on that and you'll get an email as long as you've signed up to our hub. All right. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.